Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, it is Wingy here and welcome to a brand new video. So obviously I've been talking a lot of Doctor Who lately, but it got me thinking about science fiction as a whole. And I'm a big fan of the genre. I mean, there's movies like Star Wars, other TV shows like Blake 7. Like, I just love science fiction as not only a concept, but as a genre. I think it has so much to offer. So what I thought I would do today is give you some suggestions of some great science fiction movies that if you haven't seen them, go and check them out. Now obviously taste is subjective, so I'm not saying that yes, you will definitely like these movies. It all depends on your type of taste. And I think given the movies that I'm going to be talking about, they are kind of similar in certain aspects, and if you're not on board with that type of thing, which I'll get into, then you probably aren't going to like these films. But hey, I'm just suggesting them to you. You don't have to like them. You might not even watch them after this video. You might have already seen them and think they're shit. Who knows? First up, Logan's Run. Now, if you support me on Patreon, I have already done a review of this film in written form, but I haven't really spoken about it on this channel at all, and I really want to highlight it because I watched it quite recently for the first time. Got it on Blu-ray because it's a movie that I'd heard of and I really wanted to just check out. And then I watched it and I have to admit, it is a really fun ride. The basic premise is that these people live in a wonderful utopia. It is the absolute perfect place to live. It's an absolute paradise. However, you have a thing in your hand and it starts to change colour as you get older. Then by the time that you hit 30, you're put into this, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's like this circle thing and you're sent to fly up, and then you're supposed to go on to an even better life in the afterlife or be reborn or something like that. However, there are people that refuse this and they are known as runners because they don't want to be put into this circle. They think, well, hang on, I'm only living till I'm 30. What the fuck is this about? Turns out that's actually true. You are just killed when you're 30 because, well, it's the perfect economy, isn't it? However, one of the people who is tasked with stopping these runners, I'll give you 10 points if you can figure out what his name is. His time comes up and then he becomes a runner himself. That's the basic premise of the plot. Now, I don't want to give away too much because there's a lot more to it than that. But what I really love about this film is that, yes, it is from like 1976 or something like that. But whilst the special effects aren't the greatest still, they do hold up for what they are. Story-wise as well, it's a really solid story and it's a really interesting premise. It focuses on politics, economy, a sense of morality, what actually makes a prosperous society. Like, there's so many different issues that are raised here. For a movie from the 70s as well, the pacing is actually pretty decent as well. Usually older science fiction movies, they do feel quite clunky, they do feel quite slow. I personally didn't really get that from Logan's Run. It is definitely an adventure from pretty much start to finish. It does, well, it's a bit slow at the start, but once it gets going, it gets going. The music in it as well is really, really good. The main actual theme for the film is just incredible. It starts off with this dark, pulsating bass line, and it's just incredible. I don't think it's the longest movie ever, so it's quite easy going to watch as well. There's one part in it that I think is really fucking dodgy, and look, you can't hide this because it's in the 70s and you can't really have a go at it, but there's a robot in this that is just fucking terrible. I just want to prepare you for that because I remember when I saw it, I laughed out loud. Either way, yeah, Logan's Run, it's definitely a very good film. Next up, a more modern film with Blade Runner 2049. Now, I've previously done on my channel quite a while ago now a review of the original Blade Runner, and that is also a fantastic film. In fact, it's probably better than this one, but I mean, just go and watch Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 because they are both absolutely incredible movies. If you've seen the first Blade Runner, you kind of know what you're getting with the sequel. If you were okay with the pacing of the first Blade Runner, then you're getting that again with 2049. It's not the fastest of movies. It is like 2.5 hours long as well. But what you get for that is so much more in return. Like with the original and also Logan's Run as well, this film deals with morality. And it also deals with what does it mean to be human. But it does it in a way that the original movie didn't do it. And in some cases, it takes ideas from the original and it expands on them. Ryan Gosling is brilliant in this. Now, he doesn't really do a lot, but I think that's what really makes his character work so well, is that he is subtle. He is doing little gestures. He isn't really talking much, but his facial expression lets you know what he's thinking. I mean, Harrison Ford is in this as well, and he's just Harrison Ford. I don't think he really cared at this point. I think he was just doing it for the paycheck, but it's cool to see Harrison Ford. Jared Leto is a crap villain. I will say that. His number 2, I forget her name now, but she's a much better villain. So if you treat her as the main villain as opposed to Jared Leto, you'll enjoy this film a lot more. Music, again, stunning, absolutely brilliant. Like the Blade Runner soundtracks, both for this one and for the original, are just incredible pieces of work. Watch these movies for the soundtrack alone, and the visuals. That's also the next thing that I had to point out. Visually, the Blade Runner films, I think, are the most gorgeous films in cinema. Alright, maybe not the most, but they're fucking well up there. Cinematography in this movie is stunning. Particularly, I mean, if you've seen images or in the trailer, there's like a desert kind of scene, and it's all sort of orange, like a real crisp burnt orange. It's just, oh, it's just so gorgeous. Again, it's slow, so if you're somebody who wants to just have, you know, quick bang wallop action, you're not really going to get that in this. There is some great action sequences, don't get me wrong, and there's a few twists and turns along the way, but yeah, it is a slow burn. So if you're prepared for a 2.5 hour slog, kind of, well, not really a slog because that implies that it's bad, it's worth the 2.5 hours and slow pacing. That's what I'm going to say. It's such a good film. And then finally, the last movie that I want to talk about is a movie that I've only just recently seen myself, literally a few weeks ago. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video in the first place. There's a movie that I had heard of. I was aware of certain characters and certain moments in the film. It's often credited as one of the greatest movies in cinema history, and also one of the best pieces of work ever made by Stanley Kubrick, and that's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, going into this movie, I knew some things. Yeah, I was aware of certain scenes and characters, such as Hal. You may not recognize the name, but you would recognize him if you saw him. He's like a red light that's on a wall, and he kind of talks in a voice like this. You probably know him. If you just Google Hal Space Odyssey, you'll probably know who I mean. But like I say, other than that, I didn't really know too much about the plot because I didn't want to know. I wanted to experience this firsthand. And I've got to say, when I first watched it, I was kind of a bit like, really? But the more and more I think about it and watching it again, you really understand what Kubrick was trying to do. Kind of. I don't think anybody fully understands what Space Odyssey is about. And here's the thing, I can't even tell you what it's about because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. You have to experience this movie going in blind like I did, pretty much. I expected a totally different type of movie to what we got. There are elements of what I thought it was going to be in the movie for sure, but the entire thing is just one big talking point, really. And that's what I love about it. It's one of those movies where it's not black and white. It's not, yep, this is about this and it's about this character doing that, and that character goes from A to B and goes on a certain type of journey. It is not that at all. It's a movie that you can debate and talk about for years. People still do. This came out in the late 60s and people are still trying to figure out what the fuck this movie's actually about. And I love that because it's up to your own interpretation. One thing that I have to mention is the score in this movie is incredible. I guarantee you a lot of the pieces of music in this you will have already heard before because they are that iconic. Even if you haven't seen this movie, you will know certain pieces of music in this film. Visuals, again, like for the late 60s, this looks fucking incredible. Like there are certain parts of this film, if you said that it was made today, you would probably believe that. There's some absolutely stunning visuals in this film. And when I say visuals, I mean there are some stunning pieces of work in terms of model work, in terms of landscapes, in terms of actual setup shots with sunsets, or there's a thing at the end that I was about to say but I can't really say what it is. But the sequence at the end, if you've seen it, you know what I mean. It is mesmerizing and probably was intended to be that way. And I must stress again, this is another slow film. Like at first I was thinking, well, get on with it then. The more and more you take your time to absorb it and you let it sink in what's happening, particularly within the context of the entire film, you need to absorb it as a whole. Upon initial viewing, parts of the movie may feel disjointed, they may feel not really connected to one another, and that's another talking point of the film, whether or not it is just an incohesive mess or it is actually a very, very slick and intelligent film. Me personally, I think it's the latter. It's got to be. It's just a mind-blowing cinematic experience, and if you can see it on like the biggest screen possible, I would highly recommend that as well. An absolute masterpiece from Stanley Kubrick, and out of the three on this list, this is the one I would recommend the most. However, out of the three on the list, it is probably the one that the least amount of people are going to like, if that makes sense. It is very much an acquired taste, but if it is your sort of thing, it's really your sort of thing. I don't know, you just have to see it. In the comments below, let me know, what do you think of these movies? Have you seen them? What do you think of them? If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it. Subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon in the description as always, and if you follow me on any of those, then I would love you forever. But until next time guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye. Like with the first Blade Runner, and like with Logan's I nearly said Logan Paul then.